And now, ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Kocher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
How are you, Dom?
I am good, sir. I am just sat here going through my podcast preparation checklist in Evernote.
I like it. Prepared, taking action and implementing what we talk about. At least someone does.
Hey, if we don't do it, we don't talk about it. So I'm doing it.
Very, very true. No, and people are. I've got some really cool emails. Got a fantastic one, literally only about 10 minutes ago, I think it was. Let me check. 58 minutes ago. I can't count, from Shannon, who's a long-time community member of the Preneur world, but said is only new to the podcast. So has been listening to a whole bunch of stuff and a few of the back episodes and things like that. So big shout out to Shannon, who's obviously taking action at a fantastic rate, getting through all the back catalogue, which is very, very cool.
Cool. So, what do you got for me this week, sir? Should we get straight into it?
Well, let's delve into it. Been a busy week. How's your week? Let's talk weeks. Let's always, as we normally do. How's the week been? Anything exciting happening in your world?
It's early on in the new year for me, and I'm just cycling through my clients, doing my little 2012 strategy calls. I decided this year to be proactive, and I'm going through each one of my clients, contacting them, and booking a call in with each one of them, and seeing, first of all, what they've got coming down the line, and then how I can help, both from a strategy point of view and also obviously from a delivery point of view with the media production. And it's being quite well received, actually.
Very, very cool. That's awesome to hear, mate. Nice.
So what did you do this week?
Usual trying to take over the world type activities. But, a few things. Did an awesome community call, which I do a little bit, but this one was for Scott Bywater's community, who's a copywriter and marketing advertising consultant here in Australia, and did a recorded conversation for his community, which was really cool. We spoke about the 7 levers, which always is received exceptionally well, and also given obviously our podcast last week that we recorded on framing and checklists. Obviously framing was on my mind and a bit sort of topical at the time. So we discussed using 7 levers not only as a tool to obviously grow the profits of your business, but also as a bit of a triage tool or framework that we spoke about triage before here on PreneurCast, and we sort of spoke a little bit about that, which was very, very cool. But the thing that really got me thinking was something that kind of just came out of the blue while Scott and I were chatting on the call for his clients, was a way of using the 7 levers framework as a way to actually create context. You were speaking about context and framing a couple of times in back issue episodes of the podcast as well, which is something that I'm very passionate about in terms of understanding and applying context. And we spoke about it from the aspect of, if you're reading a business book per se, and a lot of people do this, they just grab a book and read it for enjoyment or for learning, which is absolutely fine. But something that came up, which I thought was very, very cool, was using the 7 levers as a way to create context for the book you read. So if you're going to pick up a book, before you actually go and read the book, check out the index, check out the back cover, maybe check out the Read It For Me summary. If you are a member of the Read It For Me service, which we've spoke about quite a bit, you can get access to that at justreaditfor.me if you're interested. But using that framework, you can sort of say, okay, this book is all about increasing opt-ins, or this book is going to help me decrease my margins, or this book's going to help me increase customer loyalty, which will therefore give me more transactions per client per year. And it was a really cool sort of concept that came up in that conversation about, using the framework in a lot of different areas as opposed to just doubling your profits, to actually say, I'm going to read this book, but give it some context, and then that'll help you actually understand the content a little better, understand how you can apply it in your business better. As you read the book, you can actually sort of get that feel for how it can actually be physically applied to your business. Because I know a lot of people read books and find it interesting, educational, but don't really have action points or a clear bridge between their business and the content they've just read. So I thought that was a really cool point that kind of came up about using those frameworks in an effective context creation type aspect.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. We talked briefly before about using the 7 levers for triage because some personal contacts of mine had been using it for exactly that, a way of reviewing your business and seeing what needs your attention next. But I like that using it for context because that's a quite an important technique for study, which I'm obviously very interested in. We talked about that when we talked about the Pragmatic Thinking and Learning book. And in there, they talk about always have a goal. When you're reading a book, have a goal, know what you want to get out of it. And maybe the original way to do it is to review the book, as you said, to look at the index and look at the table of contents and so on. And I think, actually, Rich Sheffrin talks about that as well. When he talks about speed reading, that you get an overview for the book, but have a goal. Have a reason to be reading the book. So I think that's really good, actually. That's a good outcome from that. What would otherwise just have been you giving out your knowledge. You got something back from that call. That was good.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So I thought tying that, the last kind of things we've spoken about, frameworks, checklists, and things like that, I thought we could talk about another framework called the Preneur Hierarchy. Now, if I had my time over again, I would rename this and not make it so self-indulgent. But I
never said a word. I never said. The thought did cross my mind that it was a little bit, yes, self-indulgent. Let's leave it to that.
Yeah, I'll put it down to basically when I first, published, for want of a better term, this particular framework that we can chat about today was in my first book that was published, 4 years ago now. I think it would have been through Wiley Publishing, which was awesome. I was young and naive and decided to name it after the business because it was my framework. So, look, I think it still applies and it's sort of out there already, but it's a little bit self-indulgent. So, if anyone's got some better names, we can kind of try and change the perception of this particular hierarchy and framework in the marketplace. But for now, it's the Preneur Hierarchy. So let's just roll with that, shall we?
I'm good with that. You're still within your bounds to use the young and impressionable excuse. Relative to me, you've got quite a few years to go yet.
But look, I guess before we delve into this particular framework and I guess system to a certain extent, it's probably worth covering off a couple of key things because it's about marketing and choosing places to market and advertise your business. So it's a little bit different to the 7 levers, which is all about the key drivers for the profitability of your business and how you can use this framework to grow that. This is primarily focused on generating sales through marketing. So it's a slightly different application of a framework. And I guess when you think about it, before we kind of explain it, let's discuss from a high perspective, what is the ideal checklist, if you will, that you want to actually tick off when you're actually trying to generate new business? Obviously, one of the key things is a low acquisition cost. Obviously, when you're trying to get new sales and new customers or past customers coming back to you and spending money, you want to make sure that the cost of that acquisition, that particular sale, is quite low. Fair enough?
Absolutely. It's oddly enough, though, that's not something I'm liking this already because you're making me think about what a lot of people don't actually think about before we even get started with this hierarchy. So yeah, cost of acquisition is one of those things. Like cost of sales, it's one of those things some people don't think about very much. So
Yep.
Definitely important.
So that's, I think, one of the key things. Another one that I definitely put high on my checklist is high response, in that obviously is very closely allocated and aligned to low acquisition costs. But obviously you want that the message you send out actually gets a quite high and immediate response. So it's that sort of whole direct response type ethos coming to play there, that you want sort of not that scattergun approach. You want a very targeted type message that gets a high response.
Yes.
Measurable, I'd say, will be number 3. And this is no particular order, but number 3 on my checklist that every single marketing should try and get to as close as possible should be measurable, obviously. We've spoken about that before.
Definitely. You can't manage what you don't measure.
Very, very true. Very, very true. I guess another element, would you say, would be the type of client that you actually get would be quite important to me. we speak about getting, what I refer to anyway is, and a lot of people refer to as A-grade clients. How would you describe an A-grade client?
Oh, politely or impolitely?
Well, you deal a lot more face-to-face with clients than I do. We obviously sell a truckload of product through our e-commerce sites, Simply Headsets and Infinity Telecommunications and stuff like that. But I don't have a lot of day-to-day interaction with those guys, whereas you're sort of a little bit more towards the cold front than I am, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. For me, my A-grade clients, and as I mentioned in the Thanksgiving episode, I've been grateful for the last year that I had in the main, I would say, A-grade clients. What's important to me, first of all, is that the client values the service that I provide. I'm not seen as a commodity. I'm not seen as something that people can just, if I don't use you, I'll use somebody else. That's important to me. And also that they understand and appreciate the way that I work. I've had in the past clients that have come in and not really got with the program. That I've done this a lot and I know what I'm doing, and if I suggest that we do it this way, we use this workflow, that they go with that as well. But just in general, just having a bit of respect.
And they play by your rules.
They play by my rules. I wouldn't personally put it that way. It's a little bit egotistical for my liking, but it sums it up well. Definitely, it's just possible misunderstanding from my point of view. But those things are important. That they play by my rules. Let's use your terminology, and that they value the service that I provide, or value me as a consultant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should probably have a bit of a Freudian couch session coming up soon, mate, because I don't think that's egotistical at all. It's your business. You should operate how you want to operate. So if the client doesn't play by your rules, that's fine. There's plenty of other service providers who do what you do, and same for the listeners. There's plenty of other service providers that do what you do. And as long as you feel confident you're offering a good product and getting the right result by following your systems and processes, if the client doesn't want to get on board with that, it's too hard. We've spoken about Built to Sell. John Willow's book, on the podcast before, and we've spoken about that. You should work out what model or what business or product you want to sell, and just sell that and sell nothing else, and don't customize it, because that's where you get into trouble. And I think that is just a different way of saying playing by your rules.
Good point. You're right. I'll still need a little bit of therapy before I can just go, hey, these are my rules, play by them or get out. But we'll go for it. I'm working on it.
All right. No, good. Well, let's go back to the framework. Let's get back to the case at point, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I guess, the main points are going to be, you want a system that's structured. You want a system that's systemized. You don't want to sort of be just doing, as I said before, sort of just scattergun approach and doing, this bit of marketing here, this bit of marketing there, and kind of whatever tickles your fancy, or whatever sales rep knocked on your door this week that you agree to. So there's got to be a system and a framework you can follow. I think it's got to be scalable. Everything in business should be scalable, unless you're wanting to own a job. And that's very much an E-Myth thing that I know you're a big fan of. And it's also, I think, got to be segmentable. And this is something that took me a while to come to grips with. After my marketing degree, with the whole, Michael Port's 4 Ps and market, the segmentation, all that sort of stuff, I kind of went very anti that segmentation type conversation, went very much a direct marketing and direct response type avenue in the actual growing of the business. But as we kind of, grew the businesses and the projects and stuff like that, and really learned some stuff, segmentation actually does apply quite a bit. So I think segmentation is actually a key factor when it comes to creating a marketing framework that you can follow. So I guess they're kind of the rules or the checklists that I really want to try and achieve as much of as possible when marketing a particular business. Is that anything else I've missed, or does that pretty much cover most of it, do you think?
No, that's a good way of evaluating any system. I like that. It's a good checklist to have out there. Add that one to your checklists.
So I guess coming off the back of the checklists is what sort of, I guess, has over time evolved and continues to grow, that we've termed the Preneur Hierarchy. I'm going to laugh every time I say that now. But basically I thought we could chat through that. Now, something probably to precursor this, if people have read How to Turn Your $1 Million Idea into a Reality, it's covered as a whole chapter in that particular book. For those who haven't read it, there's obviously a free audio download available if you head over to preneurmarketing.com and join the email community there. You actually get instant download access to the audiobook, which you can check out, and then halfway through there we start delving into the Preneur Hierarchy. But I think it's worth sort of talking about it again today, and also how it's grown and adapted over those last 3 or 4 years too. So I thought we could sort of chat through that framework, how it applies to marketing and generating new customers or repeat customers to your business, and getting close to hitting those checklist criteria as much as possible.
Cool. Although there is one important thing before you get started, and that is the last thing you said there, which is that it has changed and evolved over time. And I think this is an important thing. Going back to the high level, just looking kind of top down for a minute at the whole kind of thing that we're trying to do here with checklists and frameworks, is don't stick to them. Don't cast them in stone, in concrete, or whatever the correct terminology would be, metaphor, whichever. They're there to help you. If over time you work out that something actually is better, different, works better for you, especially if it's something that we've suggested and it doesn't quite fit in with what you do, then change it, make it your own, update it, keep looking at it, keep evaluating. Don't just take it for granted that it's going to work. It's important to keep moving and changing and reviewing. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what it's all about, is just continue adapting and testing and refining stuff. But I think a lot of people, they mistake that for not having a system at all or a framework to work on, and that's what I'm sort of really big on, particularly going to 2012, is talking a lot more about frameworks and systems and having that sort of thing in place that you can religiously go back to and work on, as opposed to taking that scattergun approach. Because so many people, they buy the next silver bullet that comes out on the market, or they have all these ideas and don't really ever have a structure to actually tie those ideas to and have a framework or a roadmap, so to speak. So that's sort of, I guess, what the 7 levers is all about, what the content leverage system is all about, what the Preneur Hierarchy is all about, is having different systems for different elements of your business that you can then sort of build on and have as a good solid foundation you can always go back to. So look, we'll put a visual of the Preneur Hierarchy over on the site for the podcast at preneurmedia.tv, so you can check that out while you're listening along. We'll make sure it's up and available before we publish the episode. But fundamentally, the hierarchy is exactly that. It's a hierarchical triangle type structure. So if you have a pen and paper handy, let's walk through it as the call develops. So let's draw a triangle, a decent sized triangle in the middle of a piece of paper, and that represents the target market of your particular service or solution offering. Because obviously, as we've spoken about before, what you do is simply solving people's problems. You need to identify what that problem is, and that triangle represents all the people who have that problem, who want to spend money on a solution. So that's where we start with. And then the bottom, like everything, the good stuff falls to the bottom. The heavy stuff falls to the bottom. So that's where we want to start. We're going to work marketing a business from the bottom up, like you just build a pyramid if you were back in Egypt. Unfortunately, there's no aliens to come and market our business for us and get us clients. So we have to actually physically do the manual labour and actually build the pyramid ourselves. So I guess fitting that criteria we spoke about earlier, I would say out of all that, the easiest people to market to, the people who are going to be A-grade clients, people who are going to be most responsive to our offerings, is going to be our past clients. So if we want to make a new sale tomorrow, the people who, out of that entire target market, that align themselves closest to those criteria is going to be a past customer. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely. It's very, very common advice that it's obviously the cost per acquisition of an existing client is 0. But also, if they've already bought from you, they're more inclined to buy from you again. Yep,
you've proven that they're willing to spend money to pay for the solution. They know the rules in which you want to play by, and all that other sort of good stuff. So what we want to do is put systems in place that allow us to actually hit these past customers as much as possible. This is where we want to start building our marketing funnel and our marketing systems. And past customers are part of that marketing funnel. And so many people think about them on the other side of the transactions after you actually sell. And all they focus on is, when it comes to making a new sale, is new clientele to bring them that new sale. Whereas if you put some systems in place early, you can actually have that foundation of past customers coming back and buying from you straight away. So I really encourage a lot of people that I work with, a lot of businesses that I consult to actually get that foundation in place first, because it's the cheapest, the easiest, the most responsive people you can sell to. So to give it sort of an action step or an actionable kind of idea of this, autoresponders, email autoresponders are the perfect way to start implementing a past customer acquisition or reacquisition or sales system in place. So, obviously a lot of people who market online use autoresponders, but a lot of people who have retail businesses and consulting businesses should be using autoresponders. You can actually get plenty of autoresponder systems that allow you to upload your client's details once you make a transaction with them into a system that they then get automated follow-up marketing pieces from. Let's go back to the good old bike store example that we continually refer back to. When someone buys a racing bike, they should get a series of autoresponder messages talking about all different other add-ons and upsells and additional things they should be buying, reminders to get their wheels checked and serviced, getting new tyres, all that sort of stuff. If they're buying a family bike, different series of autoresponder emails should be going out to those type of segments to actually get them to come back and buy more. So you really want to get that in place very, very early and very, very quickly in your business. It's very, very easy to do, but you'll be surprised at how much additional revenue, new revenue you wouldn't have otherwise had, comes from having that first level of Preneur Hierarchy in place.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, if for any reason you don't know what an autoresponder is, very, very quickly, it's a system whereby you can preload, and this is the important tip, you can preload a set of email messages, marketing messages, just like the ones Pete was talking about with the bike store, and have them sent out to a large group of people, an email list, it's called, over a period of time. At irregular intervals or at preset intervals. The key here, though, the big tip, is that if you sit down one day with a piece of paper and go, these are the things I want to tell my clients about once they've bought something from me, like a bike or whatever, and then you write those emails in one go, or a series of kind of focused effort time, like critical focus time sessions, like we've talked about before, and upload them, that's it. Your marketing to existing clients, once they've bought one of your products, is done for the entire year. Possibly in one afternoon.
It's all about, exactly right. Couldn't be more spot on there. So, and a lot of this is going to sort of sound obvious. This is the thing with frameworks. A lot of the stuff actually kind of, when you hear it, go, oh yeah, that's kind of obvious. But unless you actually implement it in your business and you've actually got that framework as a core element of what you do, it's not actually it's completely meaningless to you and your business. So once you've got your past customers all set and the systems around that, we want to move up to the next level. Now, obviously, as we move up this hierarchy, this pyramid, so to speak, we're going to be getting further and further away from that golden child type customer that fits those main key criteria we spoke about earlier, 100%. The further we get away and the further we move up, the further away we are. So the next level, which is not going to be as responsive, it's not going to be as cheap, is going to be prospects and callers. Now, these are the people who have already responded to your marketing. So obviously, once someone answers the phone in your business, based on a phone call and inquiry, that person is now a prospect. That person who called is a prospect. They're on the phone to you. So what you want to do at this point is consider that a separate sale. It's a separate type of marketing. There's marketing to get the phone to ring, and there's marketing to actually make the sale, or salesmanship is another sort of obvious term for it. But you want to have things in place, things like sales scripts for your staff. When we spoke about the 7 levers, a way to increase your conversions is to have those greet and seat rules that athletes would have to really reinforce and train your entire staff the same structure of getting that sale. So having those scripts in place, maybe working on a proposal. If you're a service provider on any level and you have to actually quote the work you do or provide proposals, actually take a look at the proposals you're giving, whether it's a quote on a scrappy piece of paper with $500 for the roof tiling you're going to do, or whether it's for a phone system sale. You want to make sure you've got a very effective proposal that actually helps convert those people, because to me, they're a bucket that you need to continually make sure you've got a system in place to convert and sell to. So that's the next level up, is getting that proposal, that script to actually hit and convert those prospects and callers, because they're the next level up. Does that make sense? Is that fair?
Yeah, and it is important, again, that what you're doing here is you're showing that each level of this, one is it's going towards the pointy end, and in this case the pointy end isn't the pinnacle, the great bit, it's the sharp, dangerous, nasty bit. As it gets less easy to do, and the people will become less responsive. So that slope is a diminishing thing. And also that each layer that you're coming across is a different marketing approach. You're doing different kinds of marketing to the different people. That's a segmentation thing happening, isn't it?
Absolutely, exactly right. Yeah, because everyone, as they go through your marketing funnel, whatever term you want to talk about, or go through the buying cycle, they hit different elements of this hierarchy. So you've got to obviously target and communicate to them differently, because the next level up, that's going to be the next easiest people to convert or market to and get into your world, is going to be the searchers. And what I mean by that is that these are people who are proactively out there searching for a solution to the problem they have that you solve. So they're actually out there searching for a solution to the problem they have that you solve. So when I mean proactively, they've got their wallets and purses half open, just trying to work out where they can spend their money. So they're in that buying cycle, in that very end of the buying cycle, so to speak. So, to target these people, for example, AdWords is the obvious way to market to these people. They're obviously proactively searching, hence searches, for a solution. If we were recording this podcast as a radio or CD of the month program 4 or 5 years ago, before podcasts really became the in vogue type thing, is Yellow Pages. That was what people used when they had a problem they needed a solution to. They'd go to the Yellow Pages because it was the easiest way for them to see solution providers. And now it's AdWords. All AdWords is a solution providing type platform. So there's those sort of stuff. SEO is obviously another play for you to actually get in front of people who are proactively looking for the solution they need. So that's the next level up, is those searches. From there, if you go the next level up, I've got them pegged in that segment of the Preneur Hierarchy as procrastinators. So these people have a problem, but they're not currently proactively looking for the solution. So let's say, for example, the problem that you solve might be how to make your tomatoes grow riper and bigger. That's the solution. So obviously, if you're targeting sort of those keywords for SEO and AdWords and stuff like that, you're going to get that traffic. But what about the people who actually read gardening magazines and watch Home Beautiful? Those people quite possibly could have that problem. They're going to be most aligned to your specific target market, but they're not proactively looking for the solution. So this is where banner ads on websites and blog posts, doing guest blog posts, doing magazine advertising comes into play, because you're going to get in front of the people who are most aligned and most likely going to be procrastinators, because they're the market you're reaching them on, or the media and the medium you're using, is very, very closely aligned to the type of person and the demographics of your prospects and searchers are. Is that kind of concise enough? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you know what popped into my head when you were talking about that? And this is, I think, a very important build. It's a tip I got from Jen Shahan of FB Ads Lab, who's big, huge in Facebook advertising. But she talks in general about advertising and marketing, and about market to message match, which is basically what you just said. That depending on who's looking where for what, you need to talk to them in the right way. Yeah?
Yeah.
But the other thing that she talks about, which is, I think, builds on what you're saying now, is that whatever that advert is, whatever you do, however you are in front of that person, it's not just the initial advert, as it were. It's not the email message or the AdWords and the AdWords ad that you do, or the magazine ad that you place, but the whole funnel behind it, in a way, needs to be lined up. So if that person's an existing client, you can shorthand the process. If they've called you up, you can make some assumptions. If they're searching, they're still action takers, so you can still do something a little bit more fluid to streamline that process. But when you get to the point of procrastinators, then you've got to, as we've, just to reiterate, you've got a kind of bit of more of a struggle on your hand. It's a lot harder to make the acquisition at that point, and you've got to do a lot more convincing. You've got to make it easier for them to get involved, and so on, and make it obvious what you want them to do, and things like that. So that was just a tip that I picked up from Jen that I think is relevant here. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The content of your marketing at this level is completely different, because you have to actually build the demand. You have to actually create that demand and really scratch that problem into existence almost. Whereas with searches, all you're doing is you're selling the solution. So the language you're using in your AdWords and your SEO and that sort of stuff is solution-based language. We can fix your problem, not, hey, did you know you have a problem? And that's where the procrastinators come in. You have to actually really bring the problem to light, almost.
Yeah, that's almost like a kind of a big water margin type line across the middle of this Preneur Hierarchy triangle. When you get above searchers, it really does significantly change, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The cost, the response, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, the next level up from that goes to ignorance. So these are people who basically have no idea that the problem even exists, let alone is even remotely, needing a solution or actively looking for a solution. And, the type of, marketing that people do that sort of, they do a lot of, unfortunately, is like newspaper advertising or billboard advertising and stuff like that. I know a company that or an owner of a business I was talking to recently who we were just chatting, and he was saying they ran a newspaper advert to announce the opening of a new retail store. Now, the retail store they had was in a very, very niche sort of market. So the local newspaper was a complete waste of money because only a very, very, very small slice of a very small section of a very small corner of that pie was even relevant to them. The rest of it were completely ignorant to his business and will always be ignorant to his business. So that sort of marketing was a complete waste of money. He was better off taking that cash and throwing it at AdWords based around key targeted search terms in a geographical location that you can do with AdWords. Would have been even much better ROI by moving that investment from ignorant marketing to searcher marketing. And this is what it's all about. This is what this hierarchy is all about, because the top of the hierarchy is not even worth discussing, and that's just pointless marketing. You're just wasting money. You are completely just putting it down the drain. And this is what it's all about, is just working out where your money is currently being spent and where it should be being spent, and doing as much as you can to move all your marketing money down the hierarchy as low as you can get. Because for a lot of businesses, past customers and prospects and callers is all you need to actually market to grow a business. Because if you do that right and deliver a damn good product, which is something you have to do, it's obviously outside the scope of what we talk about here, because we're all about marketing and sales and entrepreneurship. But having a solid, good product is just granted. That's there's no if, buts, or maybe around that. You have to have a solid product and deliver on your promises. But once you have that, if you do that really, really well, you'll get referral business that just makes the phone ring. And then all you have to worry about is converting those referrals, those prospects and callers. You don't have to actually even worry about going to that level of searches. But what you really need to do as a business owner and a marketer is to sit down and really, once you get those first two levels organised, the past customers and the prospects, really, 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 really drill out every possible place people will be searching for your solutions, and spend your money there and only there if you can, because it's going to give you the best ROI, because it's going to give you lower resistance, higher response rates, lower cost of acquisition, because they've already had their wallets half open. So, the obvious ones, as we spoke about, Yellow Pages, AdWords, SEO. But there's plenty of other ones, other directories, online directories, direct mail, joint ventures. That sort of stuff can fit into those searches to a certain degree. Some of it sort of does bleed over a little bit to procrastinators, but that's what we want to try and get you guys to do. And that's the action point for this week's episode. My suggestion to you all is to actually sit down, draw out this hierarchy in quite large space. Put in all the different categories, the prospects, the past customers, the procrastinators, the searchers, in the right level and order of this segmentation, and then actually write down all the marketing you're actually doing on another list. Every single bit of marketing you do, whether it's a proposal, AdWords, magazine advertising, A-frames, billboards, whatever it might be that you're doing in your business right now, every dollar you spent in the last 6 months to market your business, to get new sales, what did they actually do? And then actually match those to the segments of the hierarchy and see where the majority of your money is being spent. Because for a lot of people, when I do this with them and sit down and actually go through their business, we actually find a lot of the money is actually floating to the top of the hierarchy, where it should actually be obviously floating to the bottom where the good gold leads are. So that's the action point for this week. I'd love to hear you guys do that, and any sort of feedback you have, any aha moments and stuff like that. So I think taking that that little bit of action off the back of this episode could make a drastic difference to the way you actually operate and the way you're spending your money.
Cool. I mean, just to kind of try and compress quite a big thing into a small space. My personal perspective on this hierarchy is all about that return on investment, whether it's money or effort, and the measurability. At the bottom of this, the widest part, which represents the biggest opportunity for you, the biggest return on investment, we have those past or existing clients. And you've got everything you need. You know something about them. You've got their contact details. They've already responded positively and bought some of your products. You've got a existing relationship with them. It's as positive as it goes. And plus, the methods of contact that you can use usually mean that you've got an easier time measuring their individual response. Now, if we take this to the other end of the spectrum, let's go up to ignorance. There's a phrase, and it comes from paintballing, but that's another story. There's a phrase for marketing to people in that space, and that I use very often, and that is spray and pray. Because that's what you're doing. You literally are throwing information out there in the hope that somebody sees it and responds. Some people call it awareness marketing. And okay, it has its place as awareness marketing. But in general, you don't know anything about these people. You don't know if they've responded, how they responded, when they responded. You can't contact them. There's so little value by comparison. I'm not saying there's no value, but I'm saying that by comparison, you've got this huge opportunity with your past and existing clients, or you've got spray and pray. I know where I'm going to focus my time.
Yep, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Cool.
So there we go. Another framework we're throwing at our listeners. There's plenty of them out there, and I think the 7 levers and Marketing Symphony, Content Leverage System, and obviously the Preneur Hierarchy are 4 very key frameworks that people can apply to their businesses based on the context they need to apply it in. So that's the episode for this week. Now, next week. What are we going to talk about next week, mate? I think we should probably take up a couple of emails people have sent through and actually start, making some episodes based off the back of that. And something that I'd love to talk about. I obviously enjoy speaking about it. So let's start with that one. Is how I sold the MCG. A lot of people have asked to sort of hear the tale there for people who aren't familiar with the story. But more importantly, I think what we should talk about is some of the tools and principles and tactics I used to sell the MCG, which is Australia's version of Yankee Stadium, and how people can apply those same tactics to selling shoes and bikes and consulting services.
Definitely, and I think that's going to be one of those things that, that was a fair old time ago in internet time, wasn't it, when you did that?
It's coming on, it'll be close to 10 years soon.
Yeah.
About 8 or 9 years ago.
So it'd be interesting to review that. I mean, it's a great story anyway, and it's very entertaining and a lot of important business lessons in it for everybody to take. But also, I'd be interested to see if you would do anything differently this time round. With the new technologies and new techniques and what you've been in business. You've been doing this kind of thing for 10 years now. And so I'd be interested in that as well as the original story. How about that?
Yeah, that's basically what the email from listeners have been about. So it should be fun. Looking forward to talking about it. I haven't sort of spoken about the whole MCG stuff for quite a while. I used to obviously do a fair bit around that, and the last couple of years obviously had new projects and new focuses. So I'm going to enjoy next week's episode.
Cool. Everybody, don't forget before we sign off, the end of year episode 35. We ran a little competition. Some people have been taking part already. You still got a couple of weeks left to take part and win some of Pete and Dom's favourite things. So pop back if you haven't listened to episode 35. You don't know what the rules of the game are. Then pop back. Let's have a little bit of fun and also, a little bit of support for us if you would, and give it a go. Maybe you'll win a little prize.
Sounds good. Look forward to speaking to you all next week. In the meantime, @Preneur on Twitter, @DGouch on Twitter for you, big fella, and also iTunes reviews and PreneurMedia.tv to get all the back catalogue, to get the transcripts, to get the show notes, to get the links to all the stuff we talk about, and have a good time. PreneurMedia.tv.
See you next week.
See you there.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at PreneurMedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.